Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today we're going to be doing a quilting play-by-play of how I quilted our latest Stashin with Stephanie design, Ultraviolet. Now, I really love how this quilt turned out, and so did all of you, and we are currently sold out of everything. We're in the process of cutting all of the orders, and sometimes we end up with a little bit extra fabric. So if there's something you really like, join the wait list. We might be able to add a few more to it. But if you missed out, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on fabulous designs like this is to join our Stashin with Stephanie Club. Each month, we'll send you 10 fat quarters for $29.99 a month. It's about a 25% off savings, and that's shipping is extra on that. And with that, you get your bundle of fabric. You get a free pattern that has been inspired by the quilt. This was this month's design. You get first dibs on getting additional fabric, and let me tell you, our Stashin subscribers bought almost everything before we opened it up to everybody else this month. And you get 25% off any additional fabric you get from that line. So it's a great deal, especially if you are looking to improve your skills next year. If you purchase or if you sign up before the end of November, your first bundle will come in December. And let me tell you, it is a fabulous collection. Last time we had a collection from this designer for Stashin with Stephanie, we sold out of that too. So you want to join in on this. It's going to be really exciting and really fun. But if you sign up in December, then your first bundle is not going to come until January. So make sure you get on before the end of this month so you can get that. The bundles will ship right before the holidays, so you might have it in time for Christmas. Just depends on how the shipping delays happen this year. But if not, it'll be a nice little surprise for you right after the holidays. So check that out. You can sign up and learn more over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. Just look for Stashin with Stephanie. All right, let's get to the play-by-play. I did kind of ruler work light for this quilt. So I had a bit of a surprise root canal the week that I was getting this quilt finished. I thought I had broken a filling, and instead it was my tooth. So I didn't get as much time as I would have liked with quilting this. I had to get it done in a day because I lost half a day to that. And so I wanted to do this wavy design in every single individual diamond. But because I lost out on time, what I did was I did the wavy design in the entire block instead. So you're going to kind of see how I made that happen. And I was already planning on doing the wavy lines because they're faster than ruler work and more easy to conquer. But what I ended up doing was kind of ruler work light, where I outlined every single diamond, and then I did my wavy lines in between. So what it does is it helps accentuate each diamond block by doing the outlining and treating each block on its own for doing those wavy lines. But it also really ties it all together and creates this kind of wavy motion going out to the sides. So we're going to take a look, and you guys can see what I see as I quilt, and we can go through this together. Hope you find it inspiring. I work on a long arm, but you can do this on a home sewing machine too. It's a little bit different process, but it's pretty similar in terms of executing the actual quilting design. All right, so here I am getting started, and I mentioned that I went and outline each block first. So what you're going to see me do here is outline to the point of the block, and you can always tell it goes from light to very dark at the tip, from tip to tip. So at this point, I outlined down one side. Now I'm traveling with that wavy line to the tip of the block. Now I'm going to grab my ruler again, and I've already outlined that one side. So I'm traveling over my stitching lines until I'm about halfway. I want to be about halfway through the block. That way I've got a good divider of where I'm going to go next. Once I hit halfway, I'm going to do my wavy line back down to my point. And then I'm going to split the difference. And I'm doing a wavy line here up to about a quarter of the way in the block. And there is a time in my quilting career where I would have marked out where a quarter is with a tool that would go away. But I no longer do that. But then I just traveled and just kind of estimate where things are. Back to my quarter, and then back to my diamond. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I am doing my wavy line up to that center, and then I'm going to travel until about a quarter of the way up, wavy line back down to that point, and then we're going to come back up to about a quarter of the way up that block. Now at this point, I've got to travel. I've got to get to my next block. So I'm going to travel down to the seam, and then I'm going to travel over. And because this is not a block that's assembled in straight rows, you have diagonal rows, and we have a piecing video on how to do it, I've got to travel a little bit in some seam allowances. So you can see I haven't stitched this one yet. So I'm doing the outlining as I'm moving from one block to the next. So I'm going to come all the way up. So my long arm is not long enough to make it all the way down to do the block that you're seeing right below where that ruler is. So I'm going to get that on the next pass. And right now I'm just traveling. I'd already done the row above it. So I'm traveling right on that stitch line. And that's why it's important to use a thread that's kind of a little bit thinner when you are doing ruler work. I've got a 40 weight poly from Glide on here, and I'm able to go over that several times without it looking bulky and gross. All right, so here we are. We've got another diamond that I'm able to do in this pass. So I'm going to quilt down to that point, and now we're going to start our wavy lines again. I've already outlined my left side, so we are good to go there. So we're just going to travel up. There's nothing special about the wavy lines. I just kind of like to go, you know, a nice little wave, not any rhyme or reason to it. Now we're going back to that center, and we're going to do wavy line back down to that point. And then here's where we split that difference. We're going to hit our quarters, and my machine likes to go from left to right. And so what I try to do is always start where I can travel kind of like up and to the right or down and to the right if possible, just because my machine is a little finicky like that. But you don't have to do that as long as you hit that middle first, going up to that point, and then about the middle of the side of the block, because that gives you a good visual of where halfway is. So that way you don't end up with lines that look very haphazard and not uniform across the quilt. This gets you away from having to mark everything, but you're still able to really get that really cool look where everything is kind of going out and waving out, and it looks mostly uniform even though we didn't take the time to mark everything. All right, so you can see me working my way across the rest of the quilt here. I'm just doing some outlining. All right, so I'd realized after I stopped filming that I could have gotten two of my outside diamonds. Some of the background here is created with diamonds, so you can see me outlining there, and I'm gonna go ahead and outline this whole thing because it looks like it hasn't been outlined at all before. And whenever you're outlining with ruler work, what you're doing is you're placing your ruler about 1/4 inch away from the seam where you want to sew. And I do stitch kind of like right next to the ditch. When you press your seams open, there is no ditch, so you stitch right next to your seam instead. All right, so I work my way back down to that start line, and this is the same deal where I'm just going to quilt the same pattern, but I am just having to eyeball it because obviously I can't see here where there's no piecing to show me where the quarter is. So I've kind of got to eyeball where I think that half is and then where the quarter is. And I was still able to create some really cool lines with this. And this is kind of fun. I like to try to do similar things in the background that I do in my blocks because I think it kind of helps tie the entire quilt together. And from the back, it looks like it's all this diamond still going out. You just have to think a little bit harder because we don't have those frames of reference from our piecing. My GoPro camera kept like slipping down here, so I think it might go all the way away, but you can kind of see that I'm making my way out to that corner. All right, so here we are back over at the other diamond, and basically I'm doing the exact same thing on that diamond as I was just doing, where I am quilting out and covering that. Just instead of going off to the left, I'm going off to the right because my diamond is now splitting off in this direction. You always want to make sure you outline first. This really helps define your block, especially if maybe if things weren't perfectly straight. It helps make it look straight when the final piecing is together. This one I was able to outline all the way down, and I'm starting at the tip instead of the bottom, which is fine. You know, as long as you kind of know where you are and where you're going next, that's totally fine. All right, so here you can see me, I gotta travel all the way over to the other half of that diamond so that I can get that other half. So sometimes it's not a real straight line to get where you need to go, but you can see me head my way over there and work my way down. All right, so here we are starting another row. This time I get to stitch all the way to the edge. And really, you're just going to be seeing the same things. So I think we'll do a little bit of fast forward so you can see me as I work my way around the quilt. But it's the same deal. You're going to start by going straight up that diamond center, and then you're going to do a little bit of traveling so you hit the middle, head back to your point, and then you're going to bisect that, and you're going to do your quarters. Then you're going to repeat on the other side, working your way around. And then you've got to travel to get to your next piece. And you're always going to want to travel in your seam lines, and that's always stitching right next to where that seam line is. Like this one, probably I'm counting at least 3 passes going over right here. And as long as you have a thread that can handle that, where you can go over it a couple of times without it being bulky and gross looking. I always love my Glide 40 weight for that. It's got a sheen to it and it kind of just blends, and I used a white thread over everything. That way I was able to quilt the same for my background as I did for this, because that background is very white. We wouldn't want that to be standing out. And because it's a very black and white quilt, it kind of reads that way, even though there's a lot of color, because, you know, Alison Glass loves her color. It works out because it matches really well, it provides good contrast, and it really is a fun way to do this quilt. All right, I'm gonna leave you with that. Make sure you check out Stashin with Stephanie. It is so much fun. You can join for $29.99 a month plus shipping. We'll send you 10 fat quarters for that price, plus you get a free pattern and 25% off any additional fabric you get, and you get first dibs when we release our new fabric. And this month it was almost completely sold out before we released it to the general public, and then it was sold out in less than 24 hours after that. So between like one day with our Stashin people and maybe half a day with everybody else, every inch was gone. And that does happen sometimes. It's hard to predict. The last 2 months, we still have some fabric, but this last month, it's gone. So make sure you sign up, because that gives you first dibs and you're able to get your goodies. So check that out over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. All right, until next time, happy quilting.